Welcome to Business Unveiled Podcast. This is the place where we help overwhelmed, time-starved entrepreneurs like you make the profitable shifts to get more done and get more out of life. I'm your host, Angela Proffitt, award-winning 8-figure entrepreneur and CEO. And in every episode of Business Unveiled, I'm bringing you conversations that will give you the expertise and strategies that will scale your team and business so you can get shit done. That's GSD in our world. So get your time back and grow a business that helps you be present in your life. Let's do this, y'all. GSD leader, I wanted to take a quick break from the show to share something super important. Did you know that employee wellness is killing businesses? According to research, 50% of employees miss 1 to 5 hours of work every week due to stress. So I'm excited to announce that we just launched a new workshop called Walk and Work. And no, we're not going to be walking and working the entire time. That would be kind of crazy. Walk and Work is an easy solution that offers an in-person workshop and program that boosts employee health, wellness, and engagement. This interactive workshop takes employees through our 7-step process to establishing healthy habits while working from home or from the office so they can be productive while also taking care of themselves. Employee wellness at work is proven to have major benefits. Numerous studies show that healthier, happier team members are more productive in life and business. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. Your actions and decisions today will shape the way you will be living in the future. If you'd like to learn more about this workshop, visit walkandwork.co and schedule a time to chat with one of our GSD experts. That's walkandwork.co. Now let's get back to the show. Shades or no shades? What do you guys think? It's just so bright.
I think mine are too ravey.
I think they're fun. I think it fits your personality.
I'm ravey.
Y'all, this is Kay. Welcome to Business Unveiled. She's so much fun. We have so much in common. We met at PodFest, which if you don't have a podcast, you probably don't care about what is PodFest. But is it like the largest conference in the U.S. for podcasters?
I think so, yes.
It was amazing.
It was incredible because I walked in and I was like, these are my people. This is where they live.
And when you find your people, it's just easy. Like today I'm in Austin, Texas, but we met in Florida. And we both love to travel. We've been to a lot of the same countries. It's like the more we talk and hang out, we're like, oh, okay, what do we have in common? Like, both of our dads are in heaven.
Mm-hmm. We're both Sagittarius.
Yep. We're both divorced.
Yep.
We both love to dance. Mm-hmm. We both make movement and dancing and wellness like so much of our brands.
Yep. We both love pink.
We do. You love to shuffle. I didn't know that that's actually what I was doing, but I kind of got it after I started to do it. I was like, okay. But I feel like I need high tops to support my ankles.
Oh, my shoes, I get the Michael Kors and I love them.
And so this is where I'm like, affiliate marketing. I mean, when I met her and she's like, I always wear these. I'm like, affiliate marketing.
Yeah, you
with the brands.
Your speech, her speech was like a light bulb moment for me. Totally inspired.
It's just, all good things take time, right? That's what it is. Mm-hmm. But today we're more focused on the wellness part and the journey part. And yes, we can always talk about affiliate marketing. I actually don't do that talk very much anymore because it's not part of our 4 Ps and the people, process, productivity, and profit that we pretty much teach, the whole GSD framework. Mm-hmm. And so affiliate marketing is a supportive component of it, but it's not a major foundational thing. The relationships matter, but without your community and without people like you watching and listening and supporting, we're girls with cool ideas.
Yeah.
Not a real community with real people, so that matters. But Kay also has a podcast, and we also have both rebranded our podcast.
Yes.
Because what was your first podcast?
My very first PodFest.
I know, PodFest podcast.
Was the Wow Factor, and then it was Fit Fabulous Life.
And that's how I found you, when I was searching for you.
Yeah, and now it's Elevated You, which I launched in January.
Yeah, so it's like over time, listening to your audience, and I mean, I would love to know if you would share like a little bit about what prompted you to change it over time to like really shift.
Yeah, I love that question because, you know, as it shifted, it started as like a very holistic, all-encompassing wellness podcast. And I started it out of just my own health anxieties that I struggled with and just wanting to take my health back into my own hands. And so after I started it, I just realized like with each different variation of it, it was kind of like a new chapter of what I was focusing on and what the market wanted, like what people were listening to. And so the newest one, Elevated You, stems from it's like all mindfulness and mindset in action. So you had that awareness component plus the action steps to elevate yourself and your well-being. And that stemmed from one of the whys behind it, which took me forever to realize.
It comes with age.
It does come with age.
And life experience.
So true.
It does. Like if
So
you're listening
true.
and you're like, it's not there yet. That's why. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's so true.
But it comes, I promise.
It does. And I asked. That was my biggest thing. I was like, okay, what's my why? I need a why to set this show apart. And it hit me. It actually just showed up into my life, and it was an experience I had when I was a child. I was chronically bullied from ages 5 to 14.
That's right.
And during that time, it was so hard because every day I experienced losing a bit of who I was to the lies I was told. And it just reminded me, you know, after that experience was over, I wanted to just forget about it. But this coming up in my life again reminded me that, you know, this is my why. And I'm still trying to figure out who I am because that inner dialogue, that inner bully is still rolling on repeat.
Yeah.
And so I feel like many people have struggled either with a childhood bullying, some sort of oppression. Maybe it was a parent-child relationship or a sibling or bad partnership. Whatever it is, those are the lies we start to layer upon our beliefs of who we are. And so Elevated You is all about sharing transformational stories, giving resources and tips and tricks on how to rediscover who you truly are and what your purpose is.
I love that. That's beautiful. And it's hard because, have you seen the movie, that Onion movie of, I don't know, it's like something about knives. Basically, you like peel off the onion, and the more you pull off the layers of the onions, it's like the onions cause the tears, and sometimes they're happy tears and sometimes they're painful tears. And it's like as you get older and more life experience, you start to peel back those layers, and you start to realize, you know, it doesn't make it right or wrong where you are in your life. Like, it doesn't matter. Everyone has different seasons of life, and age isn't what defines that. Like, my whole thing is just like, what makes you happy? And like, are you happy? And I just, like, in my 30s, it was hard. I mean, I don't really think I was happy because I was still searching, you know, for something else. So, but what I hear you saying is something that, like, I see us again, like, aligning with is when we shift and change something, it has to do with a personal issue, challenge, problem, you know, something that we're facing, and then we overcome it. And then people ask us, and then we want to share.
100%. That's exactly.
And someone recently, because I was a guest on a podcast, and he said, there's something that I noticed about you. Every time you shift or change, it is truly very painful for you. And I'm like, it is, but like, these are the things that people don't talk about.
Yeah.
And if we would normalize feelings more, and there's all these things that you can do, like the meditation, like the yoga, like she's graduating soon. Yay!
Yes, I'm in yoga teacher training right now.
Yes.
It's been 6 months, and I can't wait to add that to like my understanding of the human mind and consciousness, because there's so much study in the yoga practice of, you know, it stems way back to like nearly like 5,000 years ago, where human beings started to realize consciousness beyond just reactiveness to find shelter, find food, find whatever, procreate. Now we have this consciousness of building or creativity, and that's where human beings had that light bulb moment come on, and yoga was one of the pillars, that first pillar of what do we do with this consciousness? How do we work with it? How do we grow it? And that ultimately led to what yoga truly is today.
And it helps like support discipline and communication.
100%.
Like everything that I like cheer for
100%.
is, but at the same time, it's like, because I'm so high strung, it's like, you know, even though I tried hot yoga and you feel like you're going to die, like I did. Like, oh my God, until you come out.
Yeah.
And then it's like the best feeling ever. But like you said, you can tap into like different ways that you breathe and different, I don't know what they're called, like breathing techniques.
Yeah, there's
that can help.
breath work, pranayama.
Yeah, it's a long word.
Pranayama.
Way smarter.
What
people
you just
know it than I do.
Your 10-second thing she just a few minutes ago.
Oh yeah.
That was yoga. Yoga. There's actually like 8 limbs.
You mean we don't have to be sitting like
no,
this?
No, you do not have to be in boat pose. No, actually, the asana practice of yoga is the movement component, but asana is actually...
Asana is a to-do management system.
It is, I use it.
Oh
But asana is the physical practice to prepare you for the meditative state that comes after
That's
yoga.
a yoga thing?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
had no
asana,
idea.
that's the physical practice of yoga.
Is that their brand behind Asana? Is like, so you don't have a to-do list and you don't forget things, and so it makes you like very centered and...
It'd be
that
good
their
to check into.
Anyway, I'm just wondering.
I like this tangent because I don't get to talk about my yoga very much, but there's a whole philosophy, and it's all, there's a lot of mind work, there's a lot of awareness, higher consciousness, and that's exactly ties into our brands of elevating to that next step. And so in the yoga practice, you're constantly trying to elevate your higher self and to just become a better version of yourself. So it's a beautiful philosophy. I would highly recommend, if you have any interest in it, there's a couple great books out there. But I've enjoyed my process of growing and connecting in this new community in Austin through the yoga practice.
So tell everyone where you're from and a quick snapshot of like your journey that has gotten you to where you are today, to what you're all about.
All right. Oh, I love this question.
It's a ride.
It's a ride. It's long. How many hours do we have?
I know, we love to dance. Like, oh my gosh.
So I grew up on a farm in North Dakota. So born and raised farm girl. And then, you know, I was in the school system in, you know, the small town I was in. And about age 14, that school closed, and I had the opportunity to make a choice to go to a different school. And that was my first big decision, and my parents were very supportive of me choosing the school I wanted to, not the school that most of that other school was affiliated with. So I was able to get a fresh start.
Yeah.
So then I went on to college, graduated college as I really started to come out of my shell in college. I graduated with a graphic design degree and marketing, a little bit of sociology.
We have that in common too.
Yes, yes. And so I love it. Let's just add it to our list of things. I love it. And then fast forward a few years later, I married my first husband and lived in Minot for a few years. And then we separated and divorced. And then I moved to Fargo, North Dakota. And I really hit the ground running there. And then I, along that journey, met my second husband and lived in South Africa because he's from South Africa. So I took a little journey to South Africa.
What?
I lived there for 3 months.
Can you tell what color she is?
I had a blast. I love South Africa. I had a ton of fun just exploring the country. I've always been a traveler. I studied abroad in Spain. Like, we're doing like quick
Yes.
snapshot. So overarching theme, I love people.
Yeah.
I love travel. I love culture. I just really enjoy life and living it to the fullest.
Yeah.
And since Fargo, now I recently moved to Austin, Texas, which we are in right now.
And we're at South by Southwest.
South by Southwest.
Yeah.
The energy is real, folks. So that's where I'm at now. And then I was a recent speaker at PodFest, and that's where I met you.
Yes.
You were also a recent speaker.
Yes. And we're both podcasters. And we were like, okay, let's do a podcast together and talk about just, and we're like starting to make a list. And I'm like, there's so many different things that we could talk about. The thing that struck me the most is like how you've learned how to move and reframe your mindset into, oh, this isn't bad for me, or to be looked at a certain way. It's like, oh, this can be my superpower.
Yeah.
And what is that? Like, how did you Like, what is the framework and what are the steps to take to like change the mindset?
Oh, this is such a great question, because I look at the valleys I've faced in my life. And the valleys we face, we often, whether we end up in one or know we're entering into a valley or we're faced with something really challenging, we can look at that challenge as we're fearful. We're fearful in that point. But when I try to change the perspective of when I'm in a valley into I'm going to learn something and become a stronger, better version of myself coming out of this. This is not forever. This is a season, and I'm going to get through this. And I'm going to find the right resources, and I'm going to get myself through something. And I also like to use the valleys that I've faced in my life to face challenges that are, say, a positive growth, but still scary, still intimidating, but say to myself, wow, I faced XYZ. I can handle this. I faced XYZ. I faced whatever it is you're facing, whatever you've been through and grown as a person. You can tap into that at any time. It's not just something that happened to you. Take the fruit that comes from every experience. And so I like to face everything in life with that mentality of how can I grow? How can I share? How can I become a more seasoned version of myself? And I look at, we're each a diamond, right? And every slice, every facet that we have makes us shine brighter and more brilliant. And so sometimes it takes those cuts that are a little bit painful at first, but then you become a shinier, brighter version of yourself.
I love that. It reminds me of the Rihanna song. Shine bright. What are the words? Shine bright like a diamond. Yeah. It's like we just did a tick. Everything. It's like I hear a saying and I like relate it back to music. And like to a song, because like even when we were at PodFest, I like use like a sound to remember things, just so that I don't go off on a tangent, or you know, like a framework of stuff.
That's genius. I'm totally stealing that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, like seriously, that's how I remember. It's like in college, I would make, you know, the flashcards, and then because I could remember, you know, if I would just sit there and have a photographic memory. But if I was listening to a song, oftentimes it was hip hop or rap song.
Yeah.
And I would just like make up my own words to remember these things. And then I got away from that. It's like I don't know what happened. I got so focused on like building a business, and so it's like bringing music like back into the brand and like helping other people who have a hard time remembering things. But you love music too. So like, how do you bring music and sounds like into your brands? Like how does music correlate with K?
Oh my goodness, music.
Cote.
Cote.
I love it.
So music has been a huge part of my life. Ever since I could walk, I was singing, I was dancing.
She's a singer.
I'm a singer.
She's got to sing for us.
No, maybe. So you can hear me sing on my podcast, though.
And she has her own song.
I have a song
that has been produced.
So that story, I was hanging out on the farm with my mom, and she's like, you need to sing. It's the one thing you're not doing yet. You're doing all the things you're working on, but you're not singing. And I was like, okay, Mom, I have an opportunity.
It's always our moms.
It's always our moms.
Our
our moms are the best. And I literally DM'd this producer I was friends with, and I was like, hey, want to help me co-produce a theme song for my podcast? And he got back to me like a week later, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, whoa. And now on the new season, you can hear, especially episode 110 is, you can hear the theme song.
Yay!
And so
that's so awesome.
So you will hear, I'm not really singing, I'm more so like, I'm saying like elevate, radiate, like I'm saying words, but it's like real like EDM and real like.
But we were talking about sounds earlier, because I'm like, well, have you put, I'm like, is it a licensed sound on TikTok? Can we make up a dance to it? And can we like promote the podcast to it? You know, it's like, that's why I love the TikTok community, is because you can really get your information out there quicker.
Yes.
And people want you to win, and they want you to do good, and they want to share your stuff. Like if it's helping them, they will share it. Where on other platforms, people are not as willing to share because the mindset is a little bit more envious and jealousy of like, oh, I wish I lived, like, it's the weirdest thing. Do people say to you, oh, I live my life through your travels and like watching you through Instagram? And I'm like, that is not healthy. You should go, if that's the way you want to live your life, figure out a way to get there. Like, because there is happiness on the other side, like when you just keep searching, you know, for that thing. And so we were talking earlier about, you know, I was asking her, like, who is your perfect client? You know, who do you work with? And you said,
wellness brands. Yes, you know, it was so funny. You helped me literally write my vision statement.
right, we're sitting at Soho House.
At Soho House.
And we're like, oh God, what did we just say? What did you just say?
Yes.
Do you remember it?
Yes. I like to help wellness brands elevate their brand presence and visual voice.
Isn't that perfect? And you have the elevate word in there, which ties back to the podcast. This is so big. Like, the takeaway is anything you're doing in your personal brand, your professional brand, what you're doing for the community. Something I've learned the hard way is if something doesn't connect the dots and you're aligning yourself with things that don't make sense, like in your everyday life, y'all, in your personal brand, people pay more attention to that than they do the company brand. So it's almost like if I didn't use paper, or if I did use paper, but I like always in business talked about like being paper, like it just doesn't make sense. Yes, so it's like, you know, when you can stand and do for everything in your personal and professional brand, it's just happier. Like, things are just more balanced. Would you say that?
And it's almost like when you have, like, say you create a recipe and you, over the years, fine tune and tweak that recipe to that point where it just is effortless and you've memorized it. But it sometimes takes a little bit of like practicing and just the years of seasoning yourself and being okay with, like, you only know what you know, but it's your job to keep learning and growing. But never look back and be like, oh, why didn't I know that back then? Because it's all part of the journey.
Yeah, don't beat yourself down.
Yeah.
Or it's like,
elevate yourself up.
Exactly. It's like, oh, shit, I'm glad I know that now. Like, would have been helpful to know 10 years ago, but then you wouldn't, like you said, you wouldn't be who you are today. And the other thing, oh God, where people compare. And it's like, don't compare.
Yes. I get stuck in that.
What is the saying? Your today to my tomorrow. Or like, and sometimes you just have to feel the pain.
Yeah.
People have to feel the pain before they're going to like listen.
Yeah.
Of, oh, maybe that wasn't the best idea. Or, oh, that's what she was talking about. And you just have to sit back and write it out sometimes.
Yeah.
Did you have like a specific moment though in time where you're like, okay, this is my superpower. This isn't like a negative thing about me. Like, I can use all of these tools and elevate my superpower. Like, was there one story, or did that just like happen over time?
You know, I think it's been little incremental stories along the way. My biggest one recently is I never thought about this, you know, when I was a kid and, you know, up through even, you know, now especially working through the traumas of the being bullied. I'd say my superpower is my charisma. I can talk to anybody. I can make friends with a tree, someone once told me. And it's like, I always thought that was everybody.
Right.
I didn't think of that as my superpower. But we all have a superpower. And it's sometimes we're just so used to being ourselves, or we're just so used to who we are, we don't think of that element as our superpower. It's our day-to-day normal life. I was brought up to just be kind to everybody, and through my experiences and the growth I've had and the work I've done on my psyche and everything, I've been able to just tap into that. And then now, what can I do how can I help others find their sense of charisma and like their active listening skills or emotional intelligence? Because those are things I'm always focused on growing in myself. So now I can help somebody else.
So we were also talking about active listening, which is something that is very important, and it very much supports like our phase 1 in GSD is like the people. Understand the person you're talking to, because if you're not customizing the message the way they need to hear it based on their personality, you can be talking and they can be listening, active listening.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand, it's almost a level of frustration, and we're not conditioned, especially in the American culture, to ask, to clarify, like, what do you mean? Because some people are made to feel stupid, or that they don't belong, or they don't want to ask for further clarification because the person seems a little closed off for whatever reason. But there's this understanding, and there's a lot of misunderstandings that are going on. So when you define, because you talk about active listening a lot, like, what does that mean to you?
Active listening to me means engaging and actually caring and listening to the person you're having a conversation with. Because instead of like preparing yourself to be ready to answer, you're actually engaging in the conversation.
Yeah.
And it can help you as a podcaster, it can help you as a partner, it can help you as a parent, it can help you have better inner dialogue with yourself. But taking time to actually hear the words, it's like we're supposed to chew our food 50 times before we swallow it, and we don't.
Just 50?
It might even be more. I don't know the actual.
I don't know.
But
we're always in a hurry.
We're always in a hurry, and I think that's the biggest takeaway from podcasting has been for me to learn how to listen to what someone is saying.
And it's like, again, I feel like it's come with age, because I did have that part of my life where it's like I wanted to fix everything and I wanted to help everybody. I still, to this day, want, genuinely, I think we both do, we want to help everybody. But we're not for everybody, because not everybody thinks like us. And that's where some of the miscommunication comes in, even when you're a completely different personality. And that's where, if you're not self-aware, things can get real heated, real fast, over miscommunication. And it's like, this is why I like Marco Polo so much.
Same.
We both Marco Polo.
When you told me that, I was like, oh girl, we're gonna have lots of fun, because you get the voice inflection, you get all the different mannerisms, and I think too with COVID, everything happening with COVID, and we were so blocked off from communicating on this in-person level, now we're kind of coming back, and we have to almost relearn how to talk to one another, or understand that expectations or assumptions, and these are things that can break relationships.
Yeah.
I highly recommend the book, The Four Agreements.
The Four
Agreements.
4 Agreements.
Yes.
What is that about?
They talk about these 4 agreements. It's almost like it's philosophies of life.
Okay.
And one of them is don't make assumptions.
Ever. I mean, how many times do I catch myself making assumptions? And you can like lose business deals if you assume, especially we usually assume the worst for ourselves, like, oh, they don't want to work with us, or this, but what if they do? And you're putting trash talking yourself.
You're trash talking yourself. And then
what is it, the ASS, like, don't ever, what is that? Like, assuming makes an ass out of you and me, or something. Do you know that saying?
No,
oh my God, it's like ASS. I don't know. It's like a little chant that my dad always said. He's like, you never assume anything, because assuming makes an ass out of you and me. Something like that.
That's funny.
It sounded funny.
That is true.
But so don't assume.
Don't assume.
So do you have a advice or feedback on if someone seems closed off or they're not active listening, like how to re-engage the conversation? Like, are there techniques for people to know, like how to know if somebody is not completely engaged and like what's being discussed?
I would honestly like ask them a question that, think about something they're interested in, or ask them something about them. Most people would like disengage think about times you disengage, and ask yourself why those happen. And then just say, think about another person and how their feelings maybe are in a situation, or maybe they're just waiting for someone to say, hey, John, what about you? What do you think about this? Or, hey, what do you got? What are you working on now? Like, what's a big project? What's something you're really enjoying in life right now? Just like re-engage them in, and just show that you care. I think just genuine caring for another person will really help them feel safe to open up.
And sometimes when you ask questions, like, it's the most left field answer that you never thought. And then you end up connecting on a different level, because you're like, oh, I like to surf. Or I've been to that country. Or like, whatever, and you never expected the conversation to go there.
100%. I have learned so many things, some new things when I podcast with people, especially. I make friends.
Mm-hmm.
You're watching a friendship unveiling right before your eyes, or you're listening to it unveil, because I am learning so much about this individual. And so that's been it's such a joy for me. It's almost selfish. I get so much joy out of learning about other people. And just also the feeling of knowing that this is a safe space to share. Coming into a conversation judgment free and just meeting someone where they're at, I think that's the best thing we can do is just put our egos aside, or recognize our egos when they do start to show up, because that's human. That's human. There's no shunning of anything. It's just being aware and knowing that you can take action to step into a feeling, especially with someone who may seem disengaged, and practicing bits of empathy and just that active listening component.
And let me tell you, when you're in the middle of like balls to the wall building a business, having empathy is really hard.
So hard. It's another thing to think about. Yeah.
And it is like, I had to learn like some really hard, painful things had to happen to me before I really realized, like, and there's still times where it's like I'm gonna choose not to turn it on or not to turn it off.
Yeah.
But I think everything that you stand for and everything that you're being a leader towards, and like using meditation and active listening and like mindfulness, I don't know, maybe in my mid-30s I would have been like, oh, that's bullshit. You know, like, who needs that? But you're in a different phase, you know, and it's like people are like, oh, hustle, hustle, hustle. And I hate that word because I have a negative connotation with it, because to me it's like when I was in hustle mode, like I didn't sleep, I didn't eat right, I didn't, you know, there were so many things where it's like we're our hardest critic. But like, what are some things that you do like every day, like habits? We know that a habit creates, like, you have to have action. So like, is there one thing that like you're working on right now that is like you do every day and it's a habit and it supports like one of your goals?
This is such a big thing, and I think recently I've been really focusing on a morning routine.
Okay.
I've been really focusing on a morning routine, and whatever you have time for, try to fit it in. What I like to do is get up and I write in my prayer journal, I write my gratitudes, and then I do a breath work or meditation, even if it's just a minute. Even if it's just a moment where I'm being intentional with that minute of time, or sometimes it's 15 minutes and I do a nice deep-rooted, like go back to working on something I'm struggling with, like do a really deep meditation there. So, I mean, it's just sitting in stillness. And then I like to have a cup of coffee, prepare, and then I'll either go for a run, a walk, or a yoga class, something. And that's usually how I start my day.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I'm working on. When I'm doing it, I'm much more grounded than when I'm not doing it.
And you protect that time. It's like you don't let anything in. You don't let in the distractions. You're not worried about your phone going off. It's like, but is there anything that you had to do other than have the discipline of turning it all off and focusing on you?
That's, you know, honestly, I just keep immersing myself in podcasts and things and being around people who also remind me of that. And celebrate that, or I'll spend time with people who are in like a mentorship or mindfulness group that help hold you accountable, if that's something that helps you. But honestly, I just know I feel better when I do it. Like when it becomes a habit, and like sometimes I'll fall off and then sometimes I'll be on. But I just try to remember the feeling of how I felt when I'm on it, when I am doing it. It's just so much better than when I'm not practicing.
Like everything is better.
Yeah.
Like everything.
Your whole day. You're starting your whole day off to a good start. And it's like, find what works for you. Maybe it's making breakfast with your kids. You know, maybe it is getting on and checking your email. Whatever it is that works for you to start your day. Maybe it is going to a 5 a.m. spin class. I am not the 5 a.m. club, by the way. I'm a 6:30 girl.
I'm not part of any of those clubs. I don't like getting up early.
I am. Well, it's hard for me because I'm also a night owl on the weekends.
We are both not. Yeah, we're night owls.
My weekends are a mess, and I'm like, my circadian rhythm was 6 a.m.
so bad.
And even if I go to bed at 3 in the morning, on the weekends, I'm up at 6.
Oh, that sucks.
Like today.
It's so bad. Like, my sleep is just all over the place. And like, I got this ring because my Apple Watch would keep, like, you have to charge it overnight and stuff. So, and then like traveling so much, it's like the battery just goes, because it's always on. And so it wasn't like really tracking my sleep. But this ring and the data points, wow.
Which ring is it you have?
This is the Aura.
Aura ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to try that.
But it's really like tracking the sleep, and I'm like trying to read it and understand it. I'm like, I gotta watch some videos. And they like send a little QR code, their whole little presentation and their whole brand story and experience has been like great. It's just I need to go back and watch the videos and like learn how to interpret the data. And that's something like, it's not fun, y'all, it's not sexy, but when you learn the numbers and you learn the data and how it can save your life, like how you're breathing and you're not breathing, like during sleeping, it's just, it's crazy. And I've learned like when you're doing stuff that you love and you're surrounding yourself with the right people, you're more calm.
My sleep is significantly better if I am in a good waking space. Like if I'm awake in the day and not too stressed, because I will like clench my jaw in my sleep.
I do too.
I have like, I call it, I think it's like a day apnea. Like I'll hold my breath if I'm on the computer or driving. And so I'm trying to be working on my being present with my breath more. And the more I do it, the more it becomes, you reprogram that part of your brain to breathe better and not like hold it in. And so that's something I'm always working on.
It's like yawning.
Yeah.
You know, really it has to do with breathing.
Yeah, yawning
it's not so much like, yeah, you may be tired, but really it's like there's not enough air that's like getting to wherever it needs to get to.
As I take a
I know, it's like
cleansing.
we forget to breathe. Thank you so much for your time. This was super insightful. And I think just like walking away, people just need to understand that sometimes no one else is going to fix you. No one else is going to figure it out for you. You have to do the work. And like when you have things like the yoga and the mindfulness and someone leading Elevate and looking at it through a different angle of reframing, you know, it's people like you that are like paving the way for people who need that person. And we all need motivation. It comes in different forms for different people.
Yes.
Mine is my treadmill day and some music, and I'm like motivated. I'm like, yes, let's walk. In fact, I think if we had a gym, we probably would have done this podcast dancing or moving or doing something at the gym.
We totally would.
Probably. We just, there's so many things to like do around here. And I don't know, it's so cute. I like want to go explore.
Yeah, love it
so
here.
fun. But where can everybody connect with you and find you and go follow and subscribe to your podcast?
Definitely subscribe and download Elevated You. I am on all major platforms, Spotify, Apple, all of them. And then also I am the Cote, that's Kaycote, on TikTok and on Instagram. And elevatedyou.podcast is also on Instagram. So come check me out.
We'll put it all in the show notes. So if you're driving or working out, no big deal. Just go look at the show notes in the blog. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Business Unveiled. Bye, y'all.
That's it for this week's episode of Business Unveiled. Now that you have all the tools that you need to conquer the world and GSD, get shit done, would you share this with your friends and fellow business leaders? One thing that would really, really help us and help new listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a comment in Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you tune in and listen to Business Unveiled. You can check out the show notes at angelaproffitt.com/podcast and link up with us on social media so you can share your biggest insights. And I want to know your aha moments. Until next week, remember, the profitable shifts and structures you're creating in your business help you be more present in your life. So get out there and GSD.